Your business's success depends on relationships, relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's all really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I am connecting with Judith Weigle. Judith has enjoyed the spotlight throughout her career, first as a kindergarten dropout to open her own theatrical production company for the neighborhood children, moving on to public service and winning an elected office as ward committee woman, then on the road across America as a marketing director and dancing bear for the Clyde Beatty Cole Brothers Circus, as ambassador and marketing director for the Sarasota Children's Opera Company, as a publicist and seminar developer in Chicago, as an author and president of the Palm Springs Writer Guild, Toastmasters, as a divorce mediator in Los Angeles, coordinating and chairing panel discussions for Southern California Mediation Association and Los Angeles Marriage and Family Therapists, host of the Amicable Divorce Expert Podcast, arguably one of the best, most popular divorce podcasts in the country, as a workshop instructor for the Zero Mental Health Symposium and for the Divorce Summit 2022, Knowing Your Self-Worth. Judith is now focusing on her attention on you and the needs of your associations, corporations, and community groups. As you will see by pursuing her speaker website, she exerts her experiences from her background in entertainment, mediation, and law, and parlays them into keynotes, seminars, and workshops with love, laughter, and learning. Congrats on that impressive list of achievements, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to be here, Carl. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. So I'm really excited to have you on. As we were talking before we started recording, you had this really amazing idea for a way that businesses can create community and connection, which will increase employee production and retention. And your idea is really simple and elegant: internal podcasts. Since we're on a podcast now, obviously I'm a big fan of that. Tell me more about internal podcasts. What is it and how does it work?
Okay, so there are three different kinds of podcasts that we can do. There's podcasts to the public, and that's what you're doing now, right? And that's what I do on the Amicable Divorce Expert Podcast. But there's also branded podcasts, which means corporations have a podcast to the public, but it's all about the work they're doing at their company to brand them. Trader Joe's being one of the most successful at the branded podcasts. But then podcasts have evolved to one more step, and they're still being perfected now. And this is where I want to be. And it's called internal podcasts, meaning these are podcasts internal to the employees of a company only. The podcast source lives on the company's website, only accessible by people with a special code that work at the company. So what's the point of this? The point of this is to connect people on a human level, not just a professional level. So we go through our day, right, at any company. We do our work, we have goals assigned, and we do the best we can. But we don't really feel connected. And the idea came to me in September of 2022, when I was asked to speak at the Zero Mental Health Symposium. I did a workshop for therapists to teach them about divorce. And we were in the middle of COVID at the time, if we all remember correctly. So we're all working from home generally, unless we work at a grocery store, a medical facility, someplace where you really had to come to work. So we're now disconnected, connected by Zoom. Well, we did the best we could, but there's nothing like connecting on a deeper personal level. So as I'm writing the workshop for these therapists for divorce, and it was all about exploring the family construct, it all of a sudden occurred to me, we have two families. We have our personal family, and then we have our work family. And both families operate on the same principle. We are at our best level of engagement and productivity if we are connected to everybody in that family. And that's how I presented the workshop. And it really did well. And then I moved forward. I said, okay, so how can I be more involved in this? Well, my love of podcasts. I really do enjoy media and the medium of talking. I love interviewing people. I love getting to know people. And I love getting to know people beyond what you can see in front of you. And if you can connect with people on a personal level, you don't want to leave, because we need that connection. Okay, so what would connect us? Major life experiences. Carl, you had 2 brain tumors.
Yep.
If you met somebody who had that same experience, it didn't matter. It wouldn't matter how much money you made. It wouldn't matter what your religion was, what your cultural background was. When you can connect with people on a personal human level, it transcends all of that stuff. And it transcends that argument or that discussion of diversity, which is, I don't really know how it worked on a personal human level, but I know that connecting with people over human experiences that are monumental in our lives or that we're proud of, that connects us. All right, I'm gonna give you 2 quick examples. My first experience in connecting with people that came from a completely different environment that I did and looked differently than me, maybe a different educational background, was when I worked for the circus. So I was a very successful marketing director until I got married. I got married to the band leader. I talk about this in the TEDx talk. And so I wanted to live on the circus. Don't all wives want to live with their husbands? Of course they do. And I thought we were going to be very creative. Yeah. And so I had worked with the circus long enough, and I thought, here's the role I could play. I'm designing my own job with the circus, and it's going to work. And they said, Judy, thanks for thinking of us, but you're now the dancing bear. Here's the costume. Get to work. So I have no athletic ability. I'm not a performer, but I was a married person, so I did the best I could. And so then I started putting together these other goals to enhance my experience of living on a performing traveling company. And I said, who would I want to connect with and learn more about that I have the least amount of connection to? And those were the roustabouts. So I don't know, did you ever hear that word roustabout?
Oh, I've never heard the word roustabout.
Not everybody has. Okay, so roustabouts are the working guys. The roustabouts are the people that you see in overalls. You go to a circus to put up the cages, to tear down the cages, that are the pooper scoopers behind the elephant. They are the working crew. Nobody ever talked to them really and got to know them. And I said, there's got to be a story behind these people. Many of them came from jail. Many of them came from very difficult socioeconomic backgrounds, but they're human beings. They have goals. They have hopes and dreams, just like all of us. So I said, well, I'm going to make it my business to get to know them, and I'm going to volunteer and work with them when I don't have to do the dancing bear gig, which was 2 shows a day. I cannot tell you what a valuable experience that was. And that was many, many years ago when I was a young woman. But I would see these guys reading books behind the trailer that they lived in, because everybody, had trailers that they had to live in. And I started talking to them about their books. Then I talked to them about their lives, and they opened up. Nobody really talked to them. And that was one of the most rewarding experiences. Now I'm going to flash forward to the divorce work that I do. And the first thing I learned was you never judge a book by its cover. Now, what do you do in divorce? You divide money. You become co-parents if you have children. And that's what divorce is. It's dividing money and it's taking care of kids after the divorce is over. And so people would come in my office and I would have to know what they did for a living, and we have to know how much money they made because I was in charge of dealing with this stuff. I cannot tell you how surprised I was at least one occupation, plumbers. Plumbers were the highest earning people I dealt with. 3 plumbers over 12 years. They each had $3 million in the bank.
Oh, wow.
And they all invested in real estate. That's how they grew their money. They all came in with jeans. They didn't look like they were wealthy people at all, but yet they did better than most people who came to this office. Never judge a book by its cover. Be curious about people. These are the 2 learning lessons I bring forward.
Yeah, that's really insightful stuff. And I think it's stuff that can easily be applied to any office if you're a leader and you're looking to kind of start helping people feel connected and that they belong at a company and increase retention and improve productivity. Even if you don't have an internal podcast going yet, just asking people about the books they're reading and getting to know them on that personal level and showing real interest and not just assuming you know who they are or what they care about goes a long way to building the sort of connections that make people feel like that it's worth staying at a company because they feel seen, heard, and understood. And I think it's interesting how it's not a hard process to start those sort of conversations when you approach it from that mindset of curiosity.
Yes, and you have to get out of your own way while you're pigeonholing people. And we all do it. We all make quick assumptions about who people are, what they do because of how they look, the sound of their voice, just the physical attributes people have. But do you remember that Netflix documentary, and it's still on, called The Queen's Gambit?
Yes.
Okay. Who did the protagonist, the female protagonist, learn chess from?
I actually watched her so much, but it was like her. It was an older gentleman. I don't know exactly who she was to him.
He was the janitor.
Oh,
so
okay.
What happened was, so there was this scene where something erupted. She's in a girls' orphanage. And something erupted. People are running around down the hall, and she's trying to get away from girls. And she opens a door, and it happens to be this space where the janitor kept all his stuff and worked. And he was on a ladder changing a light bulb, but he had a chessboard out. And so what he did in his downtime was he played chess against himself. She was curious, what is this? And he said, well, I'd be happy to teach you. And all of a sudden, this became so interesting to her. And she had a mind that was advanced enough. And who knew, because she's at the girls' orphanage and they're just teaching her math and reading, basic stuff, right? And you're not really an individual. You're just part of the masses that at a certain age, you're going to leave the orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
But now she had something to give her a platform, to give her standing, to give her individuality. And she took that and ran with it and became a chess champion. But it was the janitor that taught her that.
Nice. Yeah, definitely a great example of not judging a book by its cover. And I think it's something that we all do, and it's a shortcut and it's easy. But I think one of the things for leaders to kind of retrain or new habits to build is to be more mindful of when they are doing that and take steps to move past those initial assumptions, especially with their employees and the rest of their team, and ask honest, open, curious questions that it can uncover the sort of deep underlying personal connections that go beyond, like you said, some of like the surface level things that divide people when it comes to like diversity and inclusion and stuff. But if you get down to the real human experiences about family and health and the kind of common challenges people deal with on a day-to-day basis, topics that could be talked about on a podcast. Also the kind of daily successes and thrills and positive events that happen in daily life. Sharing those on an internal podcast are a way to create a culture of belonging and just increase people's productivity and happiness in the workplace, which ends up getting the company the sort of growth and results and profits that they're going for, but in a way that's sustainable and actually probably even saves them money from all the cost of turnover and training new people and all that stuff, because the people that you want to stay are staying and they're being more productive than ever because you're taking care of them on that human level, which right now so many companies aren't.
Right. And I remember listening to a newscast towards the end of COVID when some businesses were opening up again. They were allowed to open up. And I remember a bartender at a club restaurant in West Hollywood. So I live in Los Angeles, in West Hollywood. And he started saying, this bartender, we are a family here. I couldn't wait to get back to my work family. It gave me a purpose. It gave me a place to be. It allowed me to grow. And I said, no, Judy, you have to remember this. This is really important stuff. So while that's going on, and I'm giving this workshop to the therapists, the Zara Mental Health Symposium, I'm also looking at possibly being a professional speaker. And I joined some different groups, and you share your background. And when I told everybody about my circus background, everybody jumped on that one catchphrase, diversity, inclusion, and whatever the third word is. And I said, okay, I understand why you think the fact that I work for the circus, which is a multicultural experience, people come from around the world to be a family and travel and perform, so you have to get along. So all these different cultures are living in their trailers around the tent. It was an outdoor tented show. So I get why people said, Judy, this is your bailiwick. This is what you should talk about. But I really thought deeper about that, Carl, and I said, people have hidden biases. So what does diversity mean to a corporation? Does that mean you have to hire X number of female and male people? Does it mean you have to now include transgender? Does it, different countries they come from? What does this really mean? So now that you've hired people and you've checked all the boxes, how does this help your company though? Maybe you've satisfied government requirements for diversity, but that doesn't really get you where you should be. And where you should be, regardless of the tools that you use or the approaches that you take, are you want to be the most tight-knit organization known to mankind. You want people to look forward to coming to work, look forward to doing the best they can. You need them to get over their hidden biases. See, that's something that none of these diversity inclusion approaches really addressed. How do you get people past their hidden biases? People get past their hidden biases when they can deal with people as human beings, sharing life. That's where this is at. And so that's why I think my love of podcasting, my love of talking to people, getting to know people, getting underneath the surface of people, what can you share with anybody in your environment? Now we're talking about tools that work, and there's a ton of science. I know we don't have time, but there's a ton of science on this. The Harvard Business Review, Onboarding Magazine, so many different resources I looked at to look at, well, what are there percentages here? Is this quantifiable that productivity can be increased? employee retention can be stronger, and client retention. And there is a ton of research out there.
That's awesome. So yeah, we're pretty much at time, but so if people want to connect with you, what's a good first step they can take to get on your radar and start a conversation?
You can go to my LinkedIn site, Judith Weigle. What is my LinkedIn? It's this long thing. I don't even know. Just put in my name, Judith M. Weigle, and you'll get my LinkedIn site. I have my speaker site, judithweigel.com.
All right. Thank you so much for connecting with me today, Judith. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection podcast. If you'd like to connect with myself or Judith, please check out the links in the show notes. Remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.